to the Get Ready podcast in partnership with Insurance Nerds. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Kerry Hannon. In this episode, we'll be discussing career transitions and what women should consider about financial preparedness. Kerry, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. I love being here with you.
Fantastic. So before we dive in, I'm going to tell our audience a little bit about you. Kerry is a nationally recognized strategist on career transitions, entrepreneurship, personal finance, and retirement. A key passion for Kerry is helping and advising women on how to take charge of their own financial planning at all stages of their lives to prepare themselves for a financially secure future. Kerry is a frequent keynote speaker, TV and radio commentator. Kerry is the author of 13 books, including Never Too Old to Get Rich, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Starting a Business, Midlife, and Money Confidence. Kerry is also an expert columnist and regular contributor to the New York Times, PBS website, nextavenue.org, Forbes, and MarketWatch. So Kerry, how do you do all that?
I know, it's exhausting, isn't it?
It is.
I think I like words, So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've been very fortunate.
Well, great. So, how do you do it? What's your day like?
Well, I start very early. I'm a morning girl, so I'm up around 5. I get as much done as I can in the morning, since I'm a one-woman show here, I work for myself, run my own business. So I do my social media in the morning. I return emails. I read the newspapers, a couple of them, as you can imagine. I'm sure you do as well. And just sort of do that, get that to-do list down and start checking the things off. So, each week is very different. Every day is very different. But I juggle a lot of different columns and speaking engagements, things like this, even talking to wonderful experts like yourself. And so it's just fun. And I just love what I do because every day is different. And every day I'm learning something new.
Definitely. That's amazing. It sounds a little bit like my day as well. And I think it's so true of so many people out there that a lot of us don't have the traditional day. And even if we do have a traditional job, it's, we all have busy schedules and different projects we're working on. So let's go back. How did you get started with these projects and everything?
Well, in my early career, I kind of cut my teeth at Forbes magazine. I was in my 20s. I was living in New York. Malcolm Forbes was alive in those days. It was go-go days of the 80s, and it was so much fun. I mean, you could come up with a story idea, and they'd say, get on an airplane and go. And for a young person, it was really exciting. And I was interviewing CEOs of huge companies and little companies and learning about marketing and business, and really great time. I went from there to working for Money Magazine, so I shifted to writing about personal finance. And you know what, Tony, all of a sudden, I was never going to run $1 billion company, but I understood personal finance because I had gotten in credit card trouble. I had, I knew a lot of things in my 20s to tell people not to do. And it resonated with me. So I moved into doing that and writing a national column for USA Today on retirement and taxes. That was a lot of fun. But one day I said, you know what, and I'd started writing books about women at that point. Suddenly, Single Money Skills for Divorcees, A Widow, a 10-minute guide to retirement for women. And I said, one day I just woke up and said, you know what, I don't want to go to an office anymore. I want to just do my own thing. And luckily, as I would advise anyone who is changing jobs, don't burn any bridges. And a lot of my old employers said, hey, keep writing for us. Keep coming out and doing books, doing columns. And I built that into speaking engagements. And, it just rolled on. So it's been a really, really great sort of trajectory for me. And I enjoy all of my platforms.
Well, fantastic. Yeah, I think that's a really valuable lesson, no matter where you are on the career spectrum, is to keep your relationships and honor them, because things change and we transition to many things in our lives. And speaking of which, obviously you're an expert and have written extensively about midlife career transitions. Can you share some tips about what people should be thinking about?
I love the idea of midlife transitions because, life is short, make every day count, go do stuff you really love. I just hate talking to people who are unhappy in their jobs or in their work because you know what? This is what we do. So I tell people, this is a great, so when you start to make a midlife career change, there are great opportunities out there, but you need to go slow. This is a process. It doesn't just click your heels and you shift off into a different direction. You really have to, all of the people that I've counseled and I've profiled, I've spent time with, they took their time, they did their homework, they talked to people who were in those fields, people who were doing those jobs. They weren't asking for a job. They just wanted to do the reconnaissance, so to speak. What is it? What does it entail? Some of them did job shadowing. They volunteered or they moonlighted to see if this was something that they truly wanted to do, because sometimes it's really not that dreamy once you're actually doing it as a job. So they went back to school and added skills and certificates. Often you might need a new certificate to move to a different direction. And they got their finances in shape. And we can talk a little bit about my fitness program if you'd like to at some point, but being financially fit, because debt is really the biggest dream killer when it comes to shifting, because you'll probably start at a lower salary than you were initially in your prior career. And that can ramp back up. But if you're starting your own business, certainly you may not be able to pay yourself initially. So all of those things come together to say, let's take our time, So it could be a process. Start thinking about what you want to do maybe a year or two in advance. And sometimes it takes 3 years or so to really do it. But the bottom line advice is everyone gets kind of, oh, it's so daunting, I'm reinventing myself, No. You're redeploying the skills that you've built your whole lifetime to this point. You're redeploying them in a new direction. Yeah, you're going to add some new stuff, thankfully. That's terrific. That's exciting. That's scary. But you're also taking what you already know.
Well, that's great. Yeah, as somebody put it to me, I'm in the middle of a transition, like with the launch of this podcast, and they phrased it as turning the page is not necessarily doing something drastically different. You're just moving on to another chapter. And
oh, I love that. Yeah. You're just shifting into a slide. And the other beautiful thing is nothing is forever. Our original career, we had this linear idea that, you go to school, you get your degrees, off you go, whatever your career path is. And it's linear. You move up the chain. But at this stage of life, you might do something for 5 years and shift even in another direction. You might do a couple of different things at the same time, which I suspect you do, and I do. And so you kind of have a lot going on, or, it's all an evolution. So it's not something so you just need to get started, make that one phone call, do the baby steps.
That's great. And I think that's so important is, there are a lot of younger professionals in the insurance industry who are part of the insurance nerds audience. And, I think for those people, that's especially true, is that they need to start realizing, and so many of them, I've talked to people who are doing one thing, they might work for the traditional insurance company, but then the insurance company has a little technology company that they're starting on the side. And so people have their hands in a lot of different activities. So it's definitely like that, is they're making the transitions while they're working the traditional job.
Yep. Starting it kind of on the side. That's a really prudent thing to do. And I just think anytime we start a new venture as part of our day, it just sort of ramps up the adrenaline. It makes it all, you start firing. And once you start learning new things, your brain shifts and the world around you shifts and everything gets, it's optimistic, right? You're looking to the future. It's a great way to live your life.
Definitely. And, the insurance industry has been a little bit late to the changing technology world, but the insurance industry is definitely starting to take it on in the financial services industry. And I think, the people in the financial services community, which you're very much in touch with, are starting to learn that, hey, we don't need to be scared of this, that this is a great opportunity for people and for companies, and ultimately will lead to better results for consumers.
Yeah. Embracing the change,
Not always easy.
Yeah.
So, obviously one of the areas of focus for you, and I think it's so important, is Women still make up a small minority of C-suite executives, of financial representatives. What do you think are the special takeaways for women with these transitions and their careers?
I say, let's go, girls. You definitely, I always, you've just got to step up to the plate and not be intimidated by the fact that, it may be a male network still. Now, this is changing. We're starting to see opportunities, but it needs to be more. We need to be out there. You need to start, encouraging the younger women coming, put the ladder down for those behind us and say, come on, it's okay. And encourage, daughters, nieces, whatever it is, depending on what your age is, to get involved in some of the financial areas, because, it's not that women aren't fantastic. And in fact, if you were just going to go to the investment, women are really great investors, and they're really terrifically astute at all of this. So it's not a matter of education. It's a matter of confidence and being comfortable in this world that for many years was something that women kind of were not encouraged necessarily from a very young age to get involved in. And, even money itself or financial topics, certainly talking about insurance and things, it's kind of taboo subjects. It's not like talking about what the latest sale at Lord and Taylor is. This is like a whole different ballgame. And so we're kind of talking about money as impolite in some way, or talking about those core things. It shouldn't be that way, and it doesn't need to be there. So you need to start encouraging those conversations with younger women and also among your own peer set.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think those are really important points. And one of the observations I had in my career is that quite often in married couples or other couples, domestic partnerships, is that it's the women who quite often run the finances in a family home.
Yep, they're the CEO of the household, no doubt about it. And when you do, studies have shown that everything women are confident about when it comes to budgeting, household finances, it's just that tricky word investing. Then they go, that's yours. You can take that over. But the fact is, women are the primary breadwinner in a growing number of families, and it's not negotiable. This is something, and most women are going to be single at some point in their life, whether through its divorce or widowhood, particularly those last decades of our lives. You're pretty good chance you're going to be managing on your own. And so you really need to be up to speed on all of those things and be comfortable with it, because no one's going to manage your money and, everything from deciding what your insurance needs are or what your investment needs are. Nobody does it better than you do. So it's really critical not to hand that off to somebody else, because this is a football you need to carry.
Definitely. So, that brings me to your new book, Money Confidence, Really Smart Financial Moves for Newly Single Women. What are some of the key takeaways from that book about how women can be more financially prepared?
Yeah, no kidding. Tony, this happened even in my own family. My younger brother passed away 2 years ago, and suddenly and shockingly, his wife of 30 years she didn't know where anything was. She didn't have a credit card in her own name. She didn't have a bank account in her own name. She really 100% had deferred everything to my brother. And I'm thinking, in my own family, how can that be? I talk about this stuff.
No, that's funny.
We've coached her and guided her back. She's doing fine, and she's taken over things. But it was really so scary and daunting for her. And I just had no clue. And this is not an anomaly. This happens today, that women still don't have credit in their own names. They don't have bank accounts with just their name on it. These are things, simple steps that we need to put into place when we're in a partnership and things are going swimmingly, because the divorce rate is still quite high, and women do come out usually on the short end of the stick in those situations. And widowhood is extremely hard on women. And so the fact is, you need to, at the very least, know where everything is, know where all the bank accounts are, know where the passwords are, share this information. Marriage is the ultimate business partnership, and you need to be on equal footing. It's okay if you each take different roles and step up, and that's okay. You don't have to do everything, but you have to know where everything is. And I think those are just very basic steps, is making sure that you have that blueprint in front of you.
Definitely. So you would recommend, one of the things I talk about as well is a family financial meeting where you meet with your spouse / family, or whomever is appropriate, and talk about your finances and just those issues. So I think that's so important, and it's great to spread that word, because like you said, it's surprising, somebody you think may know, but they don't actually know.
Yeah, it's true. And it's just like, oh my gosh. I mean, even myself, I one day, my husband was ill and he's fine, but he had this little health crisis. And I thought, do I really know where everything is? Like, do I actually know his passwords? And so
Mm-hmm.
even someone who's in this field, I had to question myself again and like, okay, yeah, I got it. I know where stuff is, but often it's you wait till that crisis point before you do that check, and you can't do that. Now, your point of family conversations, really, really important and incredibly hard to do. I mean, I personally even get a little stomach ache thinking about it.
Oh yeah.
This being honest about money can be tricky, but that's what builds a solid plan and a solid relationship. And it's usually harder when you have it all inside your head than when you finally come out and say, I really want to do this with this amount of money. What do you think? And it's not actually always asking for permission. It's asking for support for something. Like when I wanted to go off on my own, my husband had to buy into that and say, okay, you're not going to have health benefits anymore from a company, all those things. So, but in what you work on, Tony, I think is interesting too. Like, one of your books, of course, about preparing for disasters and natural disasters and stuff like that. I mean, you can elaborate more. Obviously, your audience knows that. But this is a key part of it, right? I mean, everyone needs to be on board. Where are things?
Definitely. And that's really the crux of why I wrote Get Ready, is because that was the one thing I noticed in working with consumers and through financial advisors. And I'm sure you've heard this from people in the financial services community, is that people don't know where their things are or know how all the pieces fit together. They may have a financial plan, but they don't know those details, like what's my bank account number, like how many times have you seen, or heard of somebody who's applying for a mortgage loan and they can't get all their paperwork together because they don't even know what the documents are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's really amazing. And I think you mentioned it before, as part of it is money is taboo in a big part of our society. And talking about finances is not something that we're brought up as in a lot of families. It's like, it's a closed subject.
Yeah, it really is. And one thing I encourage for women to do, and this is so simple. Women love book clubs, okay? So in your book club, every once in a while, throw in a money book, put in your book or one of my books and just say, have that be the reading. And then you everyone sits around and you have those discussions about finance in that setting. Or you have sort of, a money group where you meet and you maybe once a month and you have a dinner or whatever it is, and your lunch, and you talk. It doesn't have to be about investing or about buying insurance or whatever it might be, but it could be just anything related to money, like, and just so you make it part of your conversations, so you're comfortable talking about it.
Definitely. Well, that's so interesting. I don't want to take away from what we're talking about, but I'm actually launching a program to help people put together financial preparedness groups where they do exactly that. So,
Oh, see that you're right on it. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Well, that's what I've heard in working with women. I found that women have been the majority of the people who are most interested about this topic of financial organization. And so it is different how everybody processes these topics. It's fascinating. So
women are very collaborative. So we like to share. We like to talk about things. So it's just giving the tools to make that happen, and making it okay to do that. I think some study I saw recently said women would rather talk about their own death than about money. So, let's get over that. That's just not a good way to approach the world.
Definitely. Well, and where does the fear of public speaking come in there?
Not really.
I know that's something people don't like to do. So I think that leads us to, what I think is a really fascinating program you're launching, the She Leads workshops. Can you share a little bit about the program?
Oh, I can. I am thrilled about these. We just launched them this year, and they're rolling out around the country. And it's sort of a one day or a part of a day workshop where we go into a community. Now, Georgia, the state of Georgia, has been our pilot program, and the Secretary of State there has been right on board promoting women. Let's do women education. Let's empower women in our state to do things. So that's our template, but we're moving out to other states, New Mexico and Michigan and Iowa and so forth in 2020, and hopefully more states. And what it is I do a keynote speech, kind of laying out the scene, what's going on. Why do women care? Why do we care? Why are we all here? And it's for women of all ages, diversity, whatever it is, every stage of life. And our first one in Atlanta, they're free events as well. We had 350 women. I mean, come on, it was amazing. And so then we do panels. And it's all local people. It's grassroots. It's your local experts or business owners. And so I put together two panels. One is often entrepreneurship. And so, because that's near and dear to my heart, but women are starting businesses at a faster clip than any cohort. So, and so that's a really important thing to get out there, even if they're starting these businesses on the side. So I do that. So but the key is to get the local element, the local financial advisors, the wealth advisors that are local, the people who they tell their stories, and even the professionals say, hey, this is where I screwed up in my life. And people it resonates. They share stories, they network, we give them financial education. It's all about education. Nobody's selling anything. There's no one touting whatever service they have or whatever. It's truly about sharing stories about money with one another. And I find it really exciting. We even do interactive exercises where people, draw their relationship with money and kind of groovy stuff. But, that's not, I don't lead those discussions myself. I have somebody who's really an expert in that. But it's really great fun. So I moderate the panels and I do the keynote. But it's really about the local community, from little towns to big cities.
Definitely. And I think you hit on something that is so key that people in the financial services community often miss, and that it's really more about education. And once people feel like they're educated, they're more apt to take advantage of financial services that better fit their needs. They may remain as customers for a longer period. The insurance industry has definitely been one industry, or especially in the life insurance industry, where the old saying was life insurance is not bought, it's sold. Where I think the transition is finally happening is that it's about education, and it's about finding the right tool. And I think the She Leads workshop is so important, is to get out that conversation where it's about stories, it's about sharing, it's about what works and what doesn't work, rather than just, here's a tool, we're going to make it fit for you.
Right. Because from that base of education and feeling like a connection with, oh yeah, this person went down this path too, they understand my vulnerabilities, you build trust and loyalty. And if someone's educated, then they can make a wise decision, and they don't feel like they're being, quote, sold something. They're really engaged in it, and they're like, oh, I understand it. Okay, this makes sense for me because. So, but it's coming to that decision yourself, and not somebody making that decision for you.
Exactly. And that just leads to happier people, happier clients, and, and allowing people to do that. And one of the things is, you've done so much, and, we could talk for probably all day. You've also testified before Congress about the needs of older workers and the changing workscape, as well as the importance of women taking charge of financial planning. What was that like?
Oh my gosh. I was so honored, and it was really exciting. And curiously enough, I was not the least bit nervous.
Great.
I was really surprised. The only thing that was hard is you could write a long statement that would go on the public record. but for
Okay.
your actual testimony, it has to be quite short. And as you can tell, I get passionate about this stuff and I like to talk. So I'm like, oh gosh, and I'm timing myself to try to make sure I can get it down to the right time. But I got my message across, and it was really interesting because there was this curiosity and truly an interest, and in particularly with the aging workforce, and how do we keep experienced workers on the job, and how do we get employers to pay attention and to make this a reality, because this is not something that's going away. And in fact, as you know, the population has shifted,
Mhm.
employers need to keep older workers, and for financial reasons, many workers, 65 is not a retirement anymore for many people, because perhaps they haven't saved appropriately for retirement, and they need the money, or they want to continue to contribute to those retirement accounts and so forth, because we have longevity now. We're living longer, presumably healthier lives than any generation. So my goodness, I mean, how you need to if you retire at 65, you're financing quite a number of years on those savings. So people want to stay in the game, but I think there's a need, because there's not as many younger workers coming up either, that employers have to say, okay, what can I do to retain this workforce, whether it's ergonomic, making the office place more adaptable, or flexible schedules, phased retirements, helping. Oh, this is my favorite. And I talked to the senators about this, is this training piece. I mean, you've got to help people keep their skills up to date, or they can't stay in the workplace. And so employers, how do we do that? How do we retrain workers as they get older so they can stay on the job? And these are big, big questions, and they're big challenges, but they do have solutions.
That's great. Do you feel this whole situation is exacerbated by technology, or how do you see technology fitting into this conversation?
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, you can't ignore it. It's a big piece of it, but the human element is not going away in any of our jobs. And I think the more experienced worker, when I say that, I mean somebody over the age of 50, perhaps, who hasn't grown up with technology as their, sort of ingrained in them. They do need to have a little more time to do as some of the technology comes on board. But that doesn't mean they don't do it great and they can't get up to speed. They just need to be given the opportunity to learn the tools and given the time. And as we move forward, yes, technology will continue to move into all of our different industries, but there will always be new jobs coming up that we never even thought of before, as our culture and our society changes. So it's not static. So as that comes in, there's other things. I write in one of my books, Great Jobs for Everyone 50 Plus, about jobs to ride the age wave, because there's jobs being created in mostly healthcare, education, and so forth, but for people in their, with longevity, jobs that people in their 50s and 60s can do for people in their 70s and their 80s, or services. And some of these things we never even had before. So you never know. There's new ones out there, but we need to be nimble. And I think lifelong learning is the key, and employers need to get on board.
Definitely. I think nimble is definitely the key word, and to integrate technology. It's coincidental is on another insurance nerds podcast, and the insurance nerdery is they focused on that insurance versus technology has now become insurance plus technology.
Oh, I like that.
So there's no longer,
Yeah.
the tension of, will the insurance industry be replaced by a technology company? It's more how do we meld them together?
Yeah, why don't you make it a team? I mean, that's great.
So I think that's such an exciting topic. So with just to get back to the She Leads workshops, do you also talk about the implementation of technology for women in financial planning and how they can?
Yeah, we do. I'm mostly in this scene. I talk to them a lot about where to go online to educate themselves. There's so many great resources out there now that it's not that you need to, of course, I like them to read books, but you can read those on your computer too. But there's a lot of free resources available to educate yourself. A lot of the mutual fund companies, a lot of the financial services companies in general have wonderful education pieces on their sites that aren't selling you products, and they really are giving you tutorials. And so I encourage people with Wiser, which is a great group here in Washington, has a good website. It's for women and their secure retirements, and wiser.org. And there's some great tutorials there about how to get started with investing, or the Investor Protection Trust here in Washington. It's a nonprofit. They've got wonderful booklets and everything, but it's online. So that's how I use technology. And now, of course, we know there are robo-advisors. There's all kinds of other ways they can get started investing. But I like to use it in my talks that she leads about the education and how technology is enabling us to learn very easily. Carve out a little time each night to just take some time and learn something.
That's great. And I'll do a follow-up so we can put in the show notes of some of these websites that our listeners can go to learn more, because I think it's so important to be able to show people the resources that are available to them.
Yeah.
So one of the other things is that you've received numerous awards for your books and honors, such as being a fellow of the National Press Foundation, Columbia Journalism School, and the Robert N. Butler Columbia Aging Center's Age Boom Academy, and the Gerontological Society of America, and the Journalists in Aging Fellows Program. So, I was curious about that, especially for some of the younger people out there. What do you feel has made you stand out over the years?
Networking.
Okay.
Networking is one letter away from not working, I like to say. And so here's the thing. I'm out there. I talk to people. I'm meeting people in my field. I'm interviewing people who are, leading, leaders in my field all the time. And so I think because I've been able to develop this voice in these contexts, I've heard about, people have heard about me and come to me and offered me some of these opportunities to continue educating myself. And those fellowships very much carved out time to give me exposure to people who are even, big experts in my field, that like the aging field. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that much about the aging field. I was, cut my teeth on investing and financial stuff and personal finance and so forth, and maybe even jobs. But then when I started this whole aging field, oh my goodness. So that, was quite exciting for me to start to hone in on who's out there. And it's not that I was going to actually necessarily start speaking and writing about what they do, but my goodness, they enrich my life by being exposed to them.
That's great. So, and I think that's such an important takeaway, is that it's all about our network and the people you stay in touch with. But the important thing is not only to network, but to learn from these people, is that we can all learn.
Not be a sponge.
Yeah. I don't remember the old saying, but, there's something to learn from every person you meet.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. And the key to that is listening.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy when you meet new people, when you're in a conference or something, to start feeling like you need to be marketing yourself and telling everybody who you are. But really ask questions and learn about who they are. And if you listen, it's incredible that, first of all, you make the other person feel great. And so you've made a connection there. But secondly, you learn something.
That's great. That's such valuable advice. So I think we talked about it at the beginning, but just to, kind of start wrapping up, is, we've talked about all the different things that you do. Is how do you find balance and organization and keep moving forward?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know if every day I have the proper balance, but I do have balance because I have a dog. And and if you have a dog, you get out. She's a Labrador Retriever. She's my road manager. She keeps me honest. I get out, I push back. I'm out there walking her. I walk a couple miles a day with her. So I have that, and I have hobbies, passions in my life. For me, in addition to my fantastic dog, I love horses. And so that's my incentive, because I know I want to have time to spend with my animals. I work really hard, intensely, and then I take a break and I back away. And that's why I get up so early in the morning, so that I have that little time most days, not every day, that I can do those things. And it's incredible how it refreshes me, and I'm not in front of a screen.
Well, that's so important, especially in these times. It's so hard to break away from a screen. And I think you hit on something that's super important, especially for younger people, that you do need to still take a break and take time for yourselves. I don't know, are you familiar with that Microsoft study that they just released, that they did a trial 4-day 4-day work week
Okay.
in Japan, and it increased productivity by 40%.
Oh, bingo. Nice. Yeah.
So I think it hits on that theme that's not necessarily about 100-hour work weeks, that it's about doing the right work and finding that balance.
And it's being efficient. I find that when I get emails, I return them right away, because if I don't, I forget about them, and then it all snowballs. So I try to act quickly. And that old theory, don't, only touch paper, only touch something once, keep it moving, and don't stockpile stuff, because that becomes very claustrophobic and very enveloping. So I try to stay lean, from the things that I work with, and my communications, I try to make them, really as condensed as I can.
That's great. So, what's your number one tip for people on financial preparedness?
Gosh, Tony, there's so many things that are important, but a key thing is to always pay yourself first. So, and I mean that going out to people who are contractors or work for themselves in particular, because it's really easy you're paying bills, and you forget that you need to save, you need to invest, you need to put some money aside for you and your wish fund. And it doesn't I don't tell people, you're not saving for retirement, you're saving for life, right? Mm-hmm. So re-switch it, because especially when you're younger, and I know I did, you think, retirement, are you kidding me? I need that money today. But but if you can somehow reframe it that this is okay, and so just, even if it's $200, have it automatically. Automate everything you can when it comes to your finances, because that really relieves a lot of stress. And when it comes to saving, you don't miss it. You do not miss it.
That's great. That's such a valuable tip. So, Kerry, where can people learn more about you and all the great projects that you're working on?
Why, thank you. They can go to my website, which is kerryhannon.com. So that's KerryHannon.com. Or I'm on Twitter at Kerry Hannon. You can check me out on LinkedIn or on Facebook too. But I'd love to hear from listeners, readers, anyone who has questions. I'm always available. I again, as we just talked about, I learn from other people. So come at me. I enjoy it.
Well, fantastic. And for our listeners, all those links will be in the show notes, so you can just click on a link to follow Kerry on Twitter, or check her out at her website. Kerry, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to have you on the Get Ready podcast.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Next time I'm coming to California.
All right, fantastic. We can do it live. And so thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of the Get Ready with Tony Stewart podcast. And please remember to subscribe. Thank you.